The recent U.S. airstrikes on three Iranian nuclear facilities mark a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. With the United States now directly involved, Iran has condemned these actions as a violation of international law. Tehran has threatened everlasting consequences and regrettable responses. This direct engagement reshapes the regional dynamic. It forces a reevaluation of potential retaliatory actions. The immediate aftermath suggests a period of heightened tensions and likely countermeasures. Iran is expected to pursue a multifaceted response. The primary goals are to reassert deterrence and inflict costs. However, Tehran will likely seek to avoid a full-scale war with the United States. Such a conflict could threaten the survival of the current regime. Iran's strategy will balance retaliation with self-preservation. This delicate balance will guide its next moves. Attacks on U.S. bases and personnel abroad are highly probable. Iranian officials have explicitly stated that the number, dispersion, and size of U.S. military bases in the region are not a strength, but have doubled their vulnerability. U.S. military installations are spread across the Middle East. These include bases in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, Iraq, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Iran could utilize ballistic missiles, drones, or proxy forces to target these installations. This approach leverages existing capabilities and regional presence. It allows for a direct yet potentially deniable response. The activation of regional proxies is another key strategy. Iran commands a network of allied militant groups, known as the Axis of Resistance. These include Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen. These groups could intensify attacks on U.S. personnel, military installations, or allied interests. The Houthis have already threatened U.S. naval vessels in the Red Sea. Maritime disruption in the Strait of Hormuz is a significant threat. This critical choke point for global oil supplies could be targeted. Iran might employ mining, drone activity, or harassment of commercial and military vessels. Such actions would aim to cause economic disruption and generate international pressure. Cyber attacks represent a potent asymmetric tool. Iran possesses developed cyber warfare capabilities. It could launch attacks against critical infrastructure in the United States or its allies. This would impose costs while potentially maintaining plausible deniability. Further nuclear steps are also a possibility. While the U.S. strikes aim to set back Iran's nuclear program, Iran could react by reducing cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. It might even withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This would signal an intent to rapidly advance its nuclear capabilities outside international oversight. Direct missile attacks on Israel, while not unprecedented, would represent a significant escalation. A large-scale attack after U.S. involvement could push the conflict to an unprecedented level. This carries the high risk of a broader regional war. Direct attacks on the U.S. homeland are considered less probable. Such actions would trigger massive retaliatory consequences. While a desperate Iran might consider attacks further afield, this remains a very high-risk option. The potential for a threatening retaliation makes this scenario unlikely. Despite condemning the strikes and vowing retaliation, some reports suggest diplomatic overtures. The U.S. has reportedly communicated that these strikes are the extent of its planned actions. It has also stated that regime change is not the objective. Iran's foreign minister has previously indicated a willingness to consider diplomacy. However, Iran's public statements currently suggest a strong inclination towards retaliation. This aims to demonstrate strength and deter further attacks. The path to peace would likely depend on the perceived effectiveness of its retaliatory actions. It would also hinge on the Iranian leadership's political calculations regarding continued escalation versus a negotiated settlement. The question of whether Iran will activate sleeper cells in the U.S. is a serious concern. U.S. intelligence and law enforcement agencies have monitored this threat for years. This concern is heightened following direct U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran has a history of conducting covert operations and supporting proxy groups abroad. This includes plots and activities in various countries. The U.S. has charged individuals with planning attacks against critics of the Iranian regime. Iran understands it cannot win a conventional war against the US. Therefore, it relies heavily on asymmetric warfare. This includes cyber attacks, the use of proxy forces, and potentially covert actions through operatives. Activating sleeper cells in the US would be an example of asymmetric warfare. It would be designed to impose costs and demonstrate reach without direct state-on-state military confrontation. With its nuclear program targeted, Iran's leadership may feel cornered. There is a risk that hardliners might advocate for more desperate and unconventional responses. This could include activating operatives in the West. There have been reports and charges regarding plots against high-profile individuals in the U.S. This indicates a willingness to target specific individuals. U.S. law enforcement and intelligence officials have reportedly stepped up surveillance. They are monitoring Iran-backed operatives and potential sleeper cells in the United States. Agencies like the FBI and Department of Homeland Security dedicate significant resources to countering this threat. Activating sleeper cells in the U.S. would be an extremely high-risk move for Iran. While it could cause significant disruption and fear, it would almost certainly trigger a massive and overwhelming response from the U.S. This could lead to further devastation within Iran and threaten the regime's survival. A significant terrorist attack on U.S. soil would be difficult for Iran to disavow. This is especially true with the U.S. intelligence community actively monitoring such threats. Such an attack would also lead to widespread international condemnation and further isolation of Iran. While direct U.S. strikes significantly raise the risk of retaliation, activating sleeper cells in the U.S. is a complex strategic decision. It would be a dramatic escalation with potentially catastrophic consequences for the Iranian regime. Iran's initial responses are more likely to focus on attacks on U.S. bases and personnel in the Middle East. These would be conducted through established proxy networks. Cyber attacks against U.S. and allied infrastructure are also probable. Disruption of maritime activity in key waterways remains a strong possibility. However, the possibility of covert attacks within the U.S. remains a serious concern for U.S. authorities. This is especially true if Iran feels it has no other options. It might also seek to demonstrate a global reach in retaliation for what it views as a direct assault on its sovereignty and strategic assets. U.S. intelligence officials have stated that they don't know how Iran will react to this, because this is the highest rate of tension and conflict we've had in recent history. This indicates that all options, including this one, are on the table for consideration by Iran. A period of heightened tensions and likely retaliatory actions against U.S. interests in the region appears to be the immediate consequence. The overall trajectory will depend on the extent of Iran's response. It will also depend on how the U.S. and its allies choose to react to those actions. Like and share this video to keep others informed. Subscribe to the channel for more updates regarding the tense situation between the Iran and the U.S.